This is The Life of Bryony, the podcast where we talk about life's big, beautiful messes. And today's episode is all about running, but not in a scary, intimidating, Olympian sort of way. We're talking about the real stuff, why it feels hard to start, why it's even harder to keep going, and what happens when you finally find your rhythm. Joining me are two brilliant women who happen to be my friends, Helen Thorne and Emma Campbell, who have used running as a lifeline through some of life's toughest chapters. Helen is one half of the iconic Scummy Mummies and started running at 39. She's gone on to complete all 6 world marathon majors. Emma is a writer, cancer survivor, and single mum to teenage triplets. She found running in the middle of chemo and hasn't looked back since.
Just because we've fallen in love with running and it's enhanced our lives in so many ways, I, for one, certainly have long periods where I resist it. But then when it comes back, it's even sweeter than ever. So this phase I'm in again now is just joyous.
Everything you wanted to know about running, but were too afraid to ask, coming up right after this. Hi, producer Jonathan.
Hello, presenter Bryony. How are you?
Well, I'm really good today, but I imagine that this has been recorded ahead of the actual day. Obviously, we don't go out live. And so actually, when this goes out and when people are listening to it, I hope that my legs are going to be, that I'm going to be exhausted and lying on a sofa somewhere post running the London Marathon.
How many London marathons have you run, by the way?
Well, hopefully this will be my 3rd marathon.
Incredible scenes.
I have had to pull out of 5 before I get to, so I did 1, I did 2, and then my 3rd marathon has been hard one. And I don't even know. And like sitting here saying, I don't know if it has been one because I'm still a bit injured and it's only 3 weeks before. But all that said, the thing I get asked about the most by people, the content that I share on Instagram that resonates with people the most is when I take my clothes off and I go for a run and I wobble my cellulite about. And I get so many messages. How do I start running? Where do I get a sports bra from? What do you do about chafing? You know, like so many messages. And I did a little poll on Instagram the other day of my followers. And I said, do any of you like really want to run, but you're too scared to start? Tell me, what is it that scares you the most? And I was blown away by the response. So many women got in touch and said, I would really like to, but I'm scared about the way I look. I'm scared about that I'm going to be too slow. I'm scared about my safety. Like there were so many reasons. And I thought, right, I'm just going to do a podcast about this. A podcast about running that isn't me sitting and interviewing 2 like elite athletes.
Yeah, not very relatable.
No, there are loads of podcasts out there with elite athletes, people that do ultra marathons, you know, like the real kind of professionals.
Yeah, hardcore.
But that isn't in itself very helpful if you're a woman with kids or, you know, who just wants to get going. And maybe it's not even running, maybe it's, you know, some other sport. But because of the way that, you know, sport has so often been presented to us, especially as women, you know, it was always been about making yourself smaller. It's been about punishing yourself, you know? And for me, I've said this many times before, the moment that running and exercise changed for me is when it started to be about the gains and not the losses.
And what did you gain? What were the gains?
The clarity, the time to myself, the belief in myself, actually. And then also when I started doing it to nourish myself and not punish myself, you know, that was a big thing as well. And I switched exercise around and it wasn't about how it made me look. It's about how it makes me feel, you know? But I really wanted to dig into that and basically put together everything I know about running so that if you are listening to this, I can guarantee that by the end of this podcast episode, you're going to want to get some trainers on your feet and go out and do it. This podcast is going to give you the motivation. And I'm doing that not by speaking to experts, not by speaking to elites, not by speaking to longevity wankers. I am talking to two real women just like you who have hard lives, difficult lives, who are just trying to do their best and have discovered running and taken it to incredible levels.
Massively.
Alongside their normal, busy lives as mums. And they happen to be my friends.
Love that. I mean, I love the fact we're just getting guests by poaching your WhatsApp, which I love.
Yeah, no, but Helen Thorne.
Amazing.
One half of the Scummy Mummies, very funny. And then Emma Campbell, who is a friend of mine who I run with all the time. And I wanted to get like real women in to talk about how running had transformed their lives, because that to me is far more inspirational than some young Olympian. If you love these chats as much as I love having them, why not make it official? Hit follow so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to know what you're thinking about the show. Click the survey link in the show description to tell us more. It only takes 2 minutes, I promise. Can you tell us about your running journeys, Emma?
Okay, so my real, true, life-changing running journey began in 2019. Really, thanks to you. We have to be honest about that. That's the last compliment I'm going to pay you. When I got my third cancer diagnosis. So before that, in my 20s, 30s, I'd done the kind of, I'll throw myself around the common to shrink myself, and I'll, the kind of punishing runs. And then when I got my third cancer diagnosis in 2019, and our paths had crossed, and I'd started new chemotherapy, which is not a time that you would think one would then
start exercise.
Start embarking on a new fitness venture. It's just about staying alive. And you said the first time we met for coffee, do you ever go running? And I was like, well, sometimes, not for a while. Should we go for a run? And that was it. And it really, in a very brief nutshell, 2019 was, on a physical front for me, was, a mastectomy, lung surgery, chemotherapy, all that comes with that. But it was a transformative year in so many other ways, because I also found running. Our friendship was a huge part of that. And falling in love with running and dealing with my body, and looking at my body and accepting my body in a different way, in a new way, alongside.
I remember we did 10K one morning, and it was like the day before you had the
lung surgery, lung resection.
So you had a bit of your lung removed.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And then I remember in the autumn, I think it was, we did the Great South Run.
Before my mastectomy.
10 miles. And then the next day you went in for your mastectomy.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
I know, but it's like, and it's not about kind of going, oh, I'm such a hero, so amazing. But it really was my mindset and the way it helped me get through a really difficult, on paper, really, really challenging year. No, but it actually turned out to be, it was a brilliant year, as well as a really deeply challenging year.
Helen, let's talk about your running journey, which I haven't been there step by step on, because I've not run 87,000 marathons, unlike you.
Well, mine started just before I turned 40, and I thought I should sort of move my arse a bit. And so I signed up for like a Race for Life, which was awesome, in Crystal Palace. And, I was doing, I'm part of a double act called Scummy Mummies, and we wore, and we still do wear gold catsuits. And I thought, I know, I'll wear a pair of like gold leggings, which I got off like Amazon. So they're basically made out of plastic bags. And so I did my first run, so sweaty, and there was no like stretch in them or anything, but I was like, that's my signature look. And back then, as a size 18 to 20, I had glorious massive boobs, and I was sort of wiggling and jiggling everywhere. But I loved that first race because I was like, it was all women and people cheered. And I remember that was like 37 minutes, and that was my PB. I felt alive. And then I did a few more things, plodding. And then you, Bryony Gordon, I remember calling me. I was at a hotel, and you said, I'm thinking about running a marathon in my pants. And if I can run a marathon, so can you. And I was like, yeah, why the fuck not? I could do that. And so I signed up. But that then turned into, I think, Celebrate You, which was the big 10K. That was my first 10K. 2019. What a year, ladies.
Wow.
It was a big year. It was the year that real elite athletes were born.
Yes, exactly. Something was happening. So at the sort of beginning of 2020, I was signed up to do the marathon, and then the big lockdown happened in the March, but also my marriage collapsed, and I found out my husband had been having an affair, and I was just on the cusp of doing a marathon. And so after that event, of, my life kind of being blown up, I kind of really got back into smoking and drinking quite heavily, quite to professional standards. I would say almost Olympic standard.
Yeah.
Self-destruction.
Marathon standards.
Yes. I was doing my own. I really was logging a lot on Strava, And then I thought, I really have to turn my life around. So 2021 was my first marathon. That's where I sort of started choosing my health a bit more. And and now I've done 9.
When I asked on Instagram what puts people off doing marathons, or just running generally. So that's like not even like doing a 5K, doing 1K.
Yeah.
It's that they're worried they're not fast enough.
Yes.
Okay. And I want to kind of go through this bit by bit, talk about all of the things that put people off so we can kind of dismantle them and tell people that they don't need to worry about this stuff.
Absolutely.
And pace is like one of the things I remember when I did my first marathon. Afterwards, everyone was like, what was your marathon time? As if they were like wanting me to produce a certificate to prove that as a like size 18 to 20 woman, I had done a marathon.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's your marathon time? And they'd be like, oh, I haven't done a marathon. And I'd say, exactly, fuck off then.
Yeah.
So like my marathon time, I've only done 2 marathons, right? My first marathon was 5 hours 53. I think fucking fast.
That's really
in
good.
my mind, I think I run really fast. And then I look at my watch and I'm like, it tells me otherwise. It tells me
you lie.
I'm like, this went really quickly. And then my second marathon, which I did in my underwear with my friend Jada, a plus size model. Do you know how long that one took us? 7.5 hours. We were basically fucking about, pootling along. And all I will say is, don't compare yourself to anyone. Like, it's not other than yourself. Are you moving more than you were last week?
Absolutely.
100%. It's all the cliches, isn't it? But it really is why you're doing it. And if it makes you feel better, if it makes you feel more alive, more connected, helps you put things in perspective at the same time as raising your heart rate and, having a spring in your step, then brilliant. It's just... there are so many positives and very few negatives, I think. So
this episode is coming out the day after the London Marathon, also the Manchester Marathon, I think.
Yeah.
So we're going through like a marathon season at the moment. So there might be a lot of people who have either gone and watched these marathons, which are, and just to say, like, even if you don't want to run a marathon, I would go and watch one in your local city because they're always such uplifting things. Hopefully, by the time this podcast comes out, all 3 of us will have just run the London Marathon. Helen, I wanted to talk to you about this. Is that your first one took you 5:56, but you have also got 4:15.
Yeah.
And I think that there is something in running that is like, the goal is yours to choose and it can keep moving. And it's not like you go in and you do couch to 5K and then you've completed it and you're like, well, I've completed running now. What am I going to do next? Like, you can then go, oh, I'm going to do a 10K. I'm going to do a half marathon, or maybe I'm just going to try and get a faster 5K. And then you might find that life makes it hard to run for a bit. So then you have to start again from the beginning. But the joy is exactly the fucking same.
Absolutely. And my catchphrase is, everyone gets the same medal. And you'll always win gold in your own Olympics. You're the star of your own show. And I'm unbearable after a run. I'm so happy. I'm just like, this is glorious. I'm outside. Even if it's raining, you feel like you've been a badass, but if it's sunny like it was this morning.
The euphoria that I have felt on a handful of particular, I've got probably 3 or 4 runs that I can remember in such vivid detail, because unexpectedly they led to the most all-encompassing feeling of euphoria. And for me, I find a run is often, there's a period of time in the run where I'm kind of reflecting and thinking about things. Then I find myself kind of, what's going on right now in life? And then sort of almost feels like whether it's a 5, 10, 15K, then I'm kind of forward thinking and I'm thinking, I suddenly get these ideas and I get this feeling of expansion. And I feel like I could take off. And again, that might be me with really slow pace, stopping, starting, having forgotten to take a gel or eat breakfast, or in my own stumbly way wearing the T-shirt that I've slept in the night before. You know what I mean? Like, there's no slick kit in my world, but it really is the clarity I think it gives us.
And what did it give you in terms of confidence, in terms of your body?
So I was first diagnosed with breast cancer in 2010, and then I got a recurrence at the end of 2014, and then another recurrence in 2019. So secondary breast cancer, patient for life for 11 years nearly. And as I've often talked about, my fear levels and worst case scenario way of thinking dominated for a very, very long time, really detrimental effects on my mental health. And so the running was so pivotal and had such a part to play, along with other things, but it was such a pivotal part of me beginning to look at life in a different way. And I will share the story of a particular day that you and I think it was a Monday morning, and I'd had to have an MRI scan on my liver about a week before, and I knew that my oncologist was calling that morning, and we'd met for a run, and I think we'd done 10K. If I remember correctly, and we were running down on the homeward stretch to our little coffee shop. And, we were talking it through. And of course, I was up here with the kind of what if, and the phone's going to call any minute, no caller ID. And you said, and I really remember this moment, you said, but Emma, whatever happens with that call, whatever the outcome of the call is, you've still just run 10K. And I took that to mean kind of, nothing, whatever the news is, and thankfully it was good news, I wasn't suddenly going to fall on the floor and presenting as a deeply unwell person. Do you know what I mean? It just made me kind of really connect with the parts of my body that had nothing to do with cancer. And it helped me diminish, okay, whatever's going on with those rogue cells somewhere, maybe, please not, but maybe, they're not here. They're not in my legs. They're not in my calves. They're not in my arms. They're not in my heart. And, and that really was a liberating way to start looking at it.
That's amazing. Helen, also, I wanted to ask you about, so your first marathon came after the breakdown of your marriage.
Yeah.
And people often say, they talk about, running and how hard it is and how they don't like it. And I think that the hardness of it is kind of the point of it. Because you get to wake up in the morning and you get to choose your hard. You get to choose your version of hard that day. This also kind of relates, I think, to a cancer diagnosis. Today, I get to choose how the hard shows up. It doesn't get to choose me,
Oh, I love that.
Did you find in your darkest moments, like I always remember my first marathon at like mile 21, when I thought, there's never going to be a time I'm not running this marathon.
Yeah.
and then I thought, oh, babes, you've been through some really dark times. Like, buck up. Like, people are shouting your name and giving you Haribo.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And like, is that a side of running that appeals to you both?
Yeah, I think when you've got or you've overcome something really hard, I think there is a new faith in yourself, and there's a new I don't know. It's having gone through something, so like my whole world got crushed and everything I was looking forward to or thought was real, especially when you're going through an affair, when your past gets thrown up, what you trusted and all those sort of things. I had to sort of redefine who I was. I was now a single parent, as you would understand, a single person. And so all those things of thinking I'm not a runner or I'm not this, I'm not that. I had this sort of blank canvas. I could sort of reinvent myself. And I think overcoming hard things, running helped so much in that, because, I did like talking therapies for quite a few years, but actually I found when I went out for a run, I could clear my head and I could feel stronger in myself. But yeah, I think there was some Instagram meme about people who have gone through hard things have got a higher threshold for pain, but also developed this strength within themselves, which I didn't know I had. And if someone said to me 5 years ago, because it's 5 years since all the bad things happened, that you're going to go on to run 10 marathons, I would have fallen off my chair. I could never have visualized myself being who I am now. And now I can't even think about a life without running.
Whereas I think
weird, yeah,
it's really interesting, and I watch what you share, and obviously we all know each other, but you've consistently seemed to have run since that discovery and real kind of change. Whereas I've had long periods of not running, and when my marriage ended, I actually went through a long period of, I think my state of mind was so bleak and so dark that it was that kind of hopelessness. What's the point? Which is interesting if you think of living with a potentially life-limiting diagnosis or huge physical challenge. I never had that feeling with my cancer because I had such a clear why and such a clear sense of purpose, and I'm going to go into that lung surgery strong and I'm going to give my lungs the best chance, or, thinking of the people, that we've lost and that we're running. I do so much kind of running with them, with, you know, those dear friends with me. But when I was going through that intense and prolonged heartbreak, and you would say, we don't have to run, we'll just go for a walk and a coffee. And there were just months and months where I just couldn't. So I think it's really important to be honest about that. Just because we've fallen in love with running and it's enhanced our lives in so many ways, I, for one, certainly have long periods where I resist it. But then when it comes back, it's even sweeter than ever. So this phase I'm in again now is just joyous.
I always had this idea that everyone I saw running around the park or whatever, I was like, that they all woke up going, oh my God, I can't wait to go for a run, you know, like, let me at it. And I think that beautiful realization that, like, no one wakes up and wants to go for a run, but no one regrets going for one. And you've got to, you know, and it's that thing. And there will be periods of your life where you can't do it.
And that's okay.
And I wanted to talk to you about that, because you have, not only did you have this diagnosis and a divorce, you are also the mother of triplets.
She used to, every time you say the word.
Because I only have one child, right? And, you know, the idea of, you know, like having to juggle it all. And there will be a lot of people listening, watching, who are like, I can't find the time. Life is too busy. So tell me, Emma, how do you make the time?
Well, they're older now. The triplets are 15 and my eldest son's 21. And in the brief periods when, between the first and second diagnosis, when I was physically strong and I was running it quite frequently, very differently to now, but it was very much someone, my sister's popped round or a neighbour's popped round, right, I'm going up, and I'd whiz off for half an hour. Now it is easier, of course, because I can leave them in the house. And actually, can I make a confession? Yesterday, you know, it was a Sunday. Sundays can be quite tricky, and I went for what I've now decided I went for a resentment run. Because I've named it, and I thought, this is a resentment run, because I was feeling, you know, as the day wore on, I was feeling, my mood was plummeting. I was feeling more kind of like, you know, martyr mum, poor
you were
everything.
Resentful that
I was resentful.
Teenagers were in bed and not lavishing with you with daffodils.
Yeah, I was feeling a little bit unappreciated, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and there was lots to be grateful for, you know. But I just thought, I'd just go for a bloody run, and I knew that otherwise I was just going to get more and more grumpy, more and more ratty, probably start crying and be very adolescent myself. And actually I just went for a 45, 50-minute run, and it was amazing. And it did help. And I thought, that's okay. It can be a resentment run and still be a positive thing.
I love the idea of a resentment run.
I'm claiming that.
I think it's a really good idea. I quite often find myself recently like crying on runs.
Yeah.
It dislodges something.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, just like grief or whatever. You know, like, I don't know, like I find myself, it's the time that I find my brain sort of like clears.
Yeah,
do you find that, Helen?
Yeah, there's no distractions. And sometimes it is about facing the shit and facing, you're like, oh God. And I am the biggest procrastinator and faffer. When I've got a Sunday run, I could spend at least 6 hours not doing the run.
Even though you've got your kits on and your vest on.
I've done that before, and just but I know, I'm like, no, face it. A friend of mine told me this great fact the other day that water buffalo, stay with me.
I'm like, what?
Where's she going? Water buffalo, when they see a storm, they run towards it, rather than run away from it, because they know the bad things will get over and done with quicker. And I was like, right, I need to be more water buffalo and run it. And I love that kind of analogy, because there are letters from HMRC on my desk for a week before I have the fucking big girl pants to open them. I'm really can be a bit fearful, and especially because I've had lots of bad news in the last few years. Sometimes I'm like, I don't have enough in me to face the really hard shit today. But then I know it's not going to be just do it, you silly bitch.
I've made myself a water buffalo. Actually, that is a really good tip as well for anyone listening. That, you know, like get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Because if I don't know about you, but if I don't do my exercise first thing in the morning, it weighs over me all day, and then I just feel terrible because I'm not doing it or I'm thinking about it. So I like to just get up and go, but everyone's different. And everyone has different times. And I think that's really crucial. Like, if you want to, first of all, when you want to start running, do it at a time that works for you.
The morning runs are fantastic, but then I realised, especially knowing that I'd signed up for the marathon, the resistance was just building, because I do need my sleep, and I do naturally, I could sleep till midday if I was left alone.
You teenager.
So I know. Or at least stay in bed till midday, with my cups of tea. So my feeling was, I just don't want to set the alarm on a Sunday morning. Whereas I thought, I don't have to. I don't have to. Like I could. So it's been quite liberating. So this morning was a lovely early run. Yesterday I went in the afternoon, the resentment run. I think it's quite nice to think, I've been for a couple of late afternoon sunset runs, and they've been mind-blowing, especially at this time of year. But again, I think it's true, and it's only with confidence, and as like anything in life, we think, no, it's okay for me to change my schedule to suit me, and not, well, that's what I do that. Do you know what I mean? It's like, actually, what do I need, what suits me as for this running schedule, for this busy phase in life, whatever. We take our time to have these realizations. So rather than give up and go, well, I just won't do it. It's like, no, you just pivot from the morning to the afternoon, if that's what feels right on that particular day.
But I also, as I've been listening to you two talk, I've been thinking about how like the gains of running as opposed to like the losses, which is making yourself smaller, doing it for those reasons. And I remember the thing, Helen, you spoke about the moment you went from choosing cigarettes and alcohol to choosing running. And it doesn't have to be an either or. Oh, no. Just FYI. It kind of has, for me as this alcoholic, it has had to be. But anyway, but I remember for me, I did my first marathon in 2017 and I signed up to do it thinking this will stop me drinking so much. And I stopped drinking while I was running the actual marathon, but it didn't, like, I would go and run a long run and I'd be like, I've just run 10 miles. I'll have 10 pints of lager.
Yeah. I deserve it.
And my husband was like, I don't think that's how it works, Bryony. And I'm like, no, I think this is how it works.
I've nailed it.
Yeah. I know. And like that first marathon I did, like, it was nuts. And the year later I did the marathon again, and I was sober by this point. So I'd gone to rehab shortly after that first London marathon, because it really was a moment where I was like, there's a different way I could be living my life here. And there was something amazing about following this program and each week seeing my body getting stronger and having confidence that my body could do a little bit more than it thought it could the week before. But anyway, the next year I did the marathon again, and I thought it would be so much easier because I'm not drinking, and it was so much harder. And I realized the power of booze. Like I was literally running towards a bender. That marathon. I do think that is something that I love, like listening to you, that idea of like being able to, especially in your 40s and your 50s, when we think that our like, I never imagined that at the age of 44, I said this earlier to producer Jonathan, I was like, I'm fitter than I've ever been in my life, you know, and I'm like, I weigh like 14 and a half stone, 15 stone, and I'm 44. And I am, objectively fitter than I've ever been. And there's something really empowering about that as a woman, isn't there? Because like in the first decades of our lives, it's all about, I need to look good. I need to like be, I need to be thinner and smaller. And then it's like, no, I can just be.
But also as well, to be really honest, I struggle a lot. I've struggled a lot recently with how I see myself, how I see my body and how I see myself as a woman, and my kind of, in all those ways, and particularly having had a lot of surgery and reconstructions and lots of scars and things, and kind of thinking about potential one day new relationships, whatever. And so running doesn't instantly kind of stop you having those negative thoughts and that kind of even self-loathing sometimes. You catch sight of yourself as you're running past a reflection, you think, oh God. But I suppose, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because we're still in our own heads. But it does help really turn down the noise, and you just always connect, even though you might be battling with those negative embedded thoughts which don't serve you. There is still a feeling of, God, I'm strong. When I get back from a run and I sort of stand in the shower, I think I'm strong, and that is a brilliant feeling, even if I can't always hook into that.
Well, let's talk about that, because another reason that lots of people said to me that they were too scared to run was because they're worried about what they're going to look like. And that's really, it's
a real thing.
That is so key. I grew up in Australia where, sport and looking thin and tanned and wearing as little as possible was champion. And I was always a big girl. Like I was hefty, always had really strong thighs, and I always felt I will never be that thin. I will never be that pretty. I'm chosen last for the sports team. And so that little girl is still very much inside of me. And when I started running, I was just horrified. Want to hide in the parks because I felt ashamed. I felt like, and that's that whole, I'm not a runner, I'm not this, I'm not that. And it took a while to turn that around, saying I am a runner. I do deserve to be here just like everybody else. But I understand that fear, and I know people say, "Oh, I'll only run on the treadmill." Yeah. And there's also obviously safety things, and I get that. But I would say what really transformed me was finding online communities of other female runners and following people on social media and things like that. And there is a cheer squad readily made for you out there, and there's a Facebook group called Slow as Fuck Runners and all sorts of things. And I just think. But I get that fear because you just sort of think, oh, I wobble and I move and I don't look right. But I must say, concentrating on the feeling rather than what you look like can be really transformative. Yeah. And I remember you telling me, Brian, about the first time you went for a run and what you wore. Were you like in jogger bottoms and like Converse and an oversized
with
t-shirt?
My sippy cup.
Yeah.
But I also think that is why why I keep running in my underwear, and why hopefully I will have run the London Marathon in my underwear. And because we, obviously I've dragged both of you around in your pants as well. And
willingly, we were there for that.
But people often say to me, I wish I had the confidence to do that. And I have to explain to them that I don't have the confidence. I do it because it terrifies me, and because but it also makes me really angry thinking about all the time that I wasted obsessing over my body and what it looks like to other people who don't really give a shit about me. And, and what I could have done with that time instead. And so I do it not because I have confidence, but because I don't. And it's like fake it till you make it. And because I know that it is possible to do these things in a larger body or a different looking body. It doesn't have to be that you're larger. It could be that you've got a stoma. It could be that you've had a mastectomy. There could be all sorts of reasons why you think that you can't run or you can't do it, And my thing is you can. Yeah. You can. And I know that because I thought I couldn't, and then I can do it, And so for me, getting in the pants and the bra and the pants and wobbling around London that way, it's a way of kind of it's like putting a big fingers up at all the kind of societal expectations that have told me I couldn't.
Conditioning.
Yeah. But I think it's really important to say that it isn't, I would say to anyone who is scared and is worried about what they're going to look like and is worried that someone might laugh or whatever, it's unlikely anyone's going to laugh. But if they do, that is on them. Yeah. They are firmly the dickhead and the one in the wrong, not you,
Can I just add to, as when we do go for our runs and it's early morning and I make us do a detour past my kids' school because they're the ones that do laugh at me. Oh God, can you not walk along the common in your jazzy leggings, please? And can you please make sure you go the other way? Saw you and Bryony running,
Well,
but no,
our kids go to school together now, so
you're absolutely right.
That's a detour I'm ready to make.
And that's exactly. But that is that's a work in progress as well, isn't it? It really is. It really is just. I still have days where I think, oh, why am I feeling like this? Why am I feeling that kind of wanting to shrink myself or almost like, and and then other times you just feel like you could happily run naked and not give a fuck, So it's having compassion.
And also letting people know that they don't, you know, like also I get so sick of the kind of influencer outfit, which is, you know, a certain type of legging and crop top while they run, and you know, and that's my shit. Like I shouldn't, do you know what I mean? But you know, seeing people running who look so put together, and I'm like, what?
You don't need a run. You've completed it.
I look like I've been in the glare of a nuclear bomb within about 5 minutes. I am like bright red. Sweat everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Like salt in my eyes. Salt in my eyes.
The sweaty eye is a very tricky thing.
Sweaty eyes. No one talks to you about that.
No.
And the chafing. Let's talk about the chafing.
That was one of my biggest things, because when I did that run in my pants with you to celebrate you. Yeah, I was body gliding my entire body surface, and I was 100 kilos. I don't know what that is, an old money, but I don't know. I was 18 to 20 size, and I just thought, oh no, I'm going to start a fire with these thighs. Like and I've had, but the body guide worked. It does work. Magical.
That's what the question I get asked again and again and again
every
is.
Day, yes.
With the chafing, and you can buy this thing called Body Glide, or there's something called Mega Babe, which I think you can get in Boots, which is similar to Body Glide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you could use, like, there's all sorts of chafing stuff out there, and it does work.
Yes, and I would say lubricate your crack. Like, honestly, my top tips.
Your bum?
So Vaseline your asshole.
No,
and no, do it.
What?
Mic drop. These beautiful mics.
Hang on a second.
No, put in your cracks, like Vaseline and Sudocrem in your lady flaps and your bum, and then you don't get any. If you have a hairy bottom, it is marvellous.
Wow. Is that's
Everyone?
the little social clip sorted there?
Other people will have a hairy bottom.
No, but I do have it. Like I have, I'm like, love me, love my bush. Okay, like there's
and
no
your
waxing.
hairy hole.
There's no waxing going on. But I've never had arsehole chafing.
Well, it happens, Bryony, and
I'm so grateful that you've shared that.
You're all very welcome. Sorry if you're eating or doing something, but yes, a lot of lubrication helps, and lubricate your toes. Yeah. I fully vas my feet. And then before a marathon, because I've had toe chafing.
But this is so fascinating because everybody is different. Everyone will have different things. So I'm going to do something now. I'm going to do something now.
All right. She's unbuttoning her shirt.
Oh my goodness.
For the listeners at home.
This is a visual podcast.
Are you going to show us your war wound?
Are you showing us scars?
Oh God! Look, I've got my shirt stuck. So I got this new running bra the other day, which I'm not going to be wearing again because it chafed here, my shoulders.
Ouchies.
But then also I have, like, currently.
Oh, you poor darling.
I've just literally flashed my bra on the.
Well, it's been 25 minutes, honestly. I would have hoped for sooner.
It's magnificent.
That was a schoolgirl error. I forgot to put the Body Glide on.
Can I say that used to happen to me all the time, and now I put on a thin vest and then put my bra on over the top, chafe free.
Oh,
what?
I put a thin vest over my naked, milk floats, and then put the bra on, so there is a layer. And I have not been chafed since.
The kids.
But put another t-shirt over the top because it will look silly. But yeah.
Wow. You see, these are the things.
Exactly.
These are the tips. Can I just say, I love Spencer Matthews, but these are the things he is not talking about on his podcast.
I don't know how much he lubricates his asshole. Who knows? Did he have to in the Sahara? Who knows?
We've got his wife coming on soon, so we can ask her.
Folk. Yes.
We have a question from a previous guest.
I would say you can use too much. I remember doing the Berlin Marathon and I over-vassed my hole. And when I did a fart, I was like, I don't know what that is. They'd be very...
I think your next season, we've got the sponsorship for your next season.
Don't go too heavy on the vas.
This is important to talk about because I
feel like we're changing lives.
If I took my jeans off right now and like showed you my inner thighs, they're basically like dark purple.
Yes, from
chafing. In the past, but they've never gone bad, so they look like bruised.
Yes, I understand.
Constantly bruised.
Yeah.
So like if I'm in a swimming costume or something, but I'm like, I don't care because I ran like 50 miles last week.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm a fucking legend. Yeah. If you don't like looking at my thighs, stop looking at them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, everyone's too worried about themselves. That's my catchphrase, is like when I'm running around the park and looking all sweaty. And
I do think if anyone is like like, I hate running. It's like, have you tried reframing it as endorphins and Rick Astley?
Oh my goodness.
Or endorphins and show tunes, endorphins and whatever, Celine Dion.
Start
my God.
cultivating
Glorious.
curating your playlist. That's one of the most joyful things. A little addition to that, if you're someone who has lots of, you don't have to be a creative person, but if you're someone who has ideas, you know how some people have all their ideas in the shower or whatever, I find myself kind of feeling quite connected with plans and ideas or creativity or writing when I'm running. And so at the moment I've reactivated one of those, record apps. So quite often I think, there we go. And I'll kind of just suddenly slow down and speak into my little
that's come up
app.
with the best
Just
times,
and I think that's I'm enjoying that as well. I think that's quite helpful.
Also, I think this is this is as good a time as any to say that if you walk during a run, that's still a run.
Absolutely. If you do no runs, it's fine. I always say, if you've got 20 minutes to scroll on the toilet on Instagram, you've got 20 minutes to get outside for a walk. Both are very good.
What about all the gear? Do you need all the gear?
I keep thinking I'm going to treat myself to some gear ahead of the marathon that we've run yesterday, because I haven't really ever had the gear, like a proper running vest, and I hold my phone, which is horrendous, but I don't know what to do with my phone.
I have a running belt, which I adore.
Because I think if I wanted to skip through a song and things, I find all that quite stressful.
I bought. This is what we need to get someone to make a running vest for the larger lady, because I have one from Decathlon, which is pretty good. But it does, like, when I do it up, it looks bizarre. But I do it so that, like, I'm like, well, if I can do it, then there might be some woman who passes me and thinks, okay, I can run like that too.
Absolutely. I always think when I've been out on long runs and like huffing and puffing and sweating, and then like, shoveling handfuls of wine gums in my face and things like that. And then I'll get a message from people going, I saw you on your run. You were, you're looking crazy. I was like, really? I look like a swamp monster.
You were glowing.
I was like, that's the other thing. Find your snacks. I absolutely love a jelly baby and all that sort of stuff. You don't have to have gels. You can just take whatever you like
that's
as
true.
well.
I feel like it's
joyful.
Really important as well, just to slightly again segue from what you were talking about with, whether you've got big boobs or whatever it is, or someone, I always feel like I have to I probably don't do it enough, but I almost feel like I always want to say, whenever I share a run on Instagram, because a lot of the cancer community, followers and things like that, and I always have in my mind, I never want anyone to feel, oh, but I'm on chemotherapy, why aren't I running? Or how can she do it and I can't? And then feel that kind of shame or somehow. And I just think it's so important to kind of also flag that up, that just because I'm running and I'm on a chemo that I kind of call a kind chemo, because the side effects are manageable and it doesn't completely wipe me out to the extent of earlier treatment lines I've had. But again, and to reiterate, I'm doing it my way.
I think also that's a really good point, and it's really important to say, like, there might be people listening who have loved running and can't do it at the moment, and that's also okay. Like, I've had periods last year, I injured myself. I was in a boot for ages. So I had like 3 months where I just didn't run because it was like I didn't have anything in me.
Yeah.
I had nothing in me. Yeah. And all the energy I did have had to go to something very specific. Yeah. And there's no way, and so like I think I would say to anyone listening, like, it's go easy on yourself. Like, don't beat yourself up. If you are super, super, super fucking busy and there's a lot going on, like, it's okay. Maybe now is not the right time to be running.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you're much more likely, like I always say, you won't hate yourself to happiness. You're much more likely to get running at some point if you are kind to yourself and nice to yourself than if you're shaming yourself.
Absolutely.
And also that idea that I remember writing about this a few years ago, that if you think of like a relationship, running was always there. I was the one that was kind of ghosting running 1 minute or being a bit of a avoidant, and actually running was just there loyally waiting. Running's not going anywhere. And so that was when I kind of reframed it like that. It's like, it's okay, running is this lovely offering that's there for me when I'm ready and loves me unconditionally. I'm now getting really cheesy, but it's kind of, I think that's true as well, because just to say it's okay if you have to have those days or months or years where you can't. If that's your activity of choice, it will be there
when you're back.
When you're ready. And it will embrace you.
Helen and Emma, thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much to Helen and Emma for being so funny, open and real about what running's actually like. So whether you're already training for a marathon or still sat on the sofa in your pajamas, I hope this chat made you feel seen, motivated and a little bit more ready to take that first step. Don't forget to follow or subscribe. Take care of yourself and I'll see you next time.